Welcome to Tequila and Terror, a paranormal and true crime podcast where we will drink tequila and tell terrible tales. My name is Keisha, and I will be telling paranormal stories, and Wes will cover true crime.
Hey everybody, we're back. Just want to thank everybody for listening to our first few episodes.
We survived. Y'all did too.
Yeah, we had a kind of a number in our head that we thought we would hit in 6 months, and we did it in 1 week, so that really surprised us.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and somebody in Russia happened to listen to us.
So whatever bot in Russia is listening to us, thanks! We appreciate you.
Or somebody using a VPN. We don't know what happened there, but hey, I don't know any Russian words, so thank you, but vodka?
Thanks, Russia.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's crack into it. Today, I will be talking about the Myrtles Plantation, which is in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Cool. We have actually discussed going here multiple times, but we haven't yet.
We almost did once, but went to Mardi Gras instead.
Yeah, that kind of happened. All right. The Myrtles Plantation was originally called Laurel Grove, and it was built in 1796 by General David Bradford, also known as Whiskey Dave.
Whiskey Dave?
Whiskey Dave.
I could party with that guy.
Yeah, of the Whiskey Rebellion. Like, the best job title, right?
That's pretty awesome.
Not so much. After he fled from President George Washington's army in 1974, General Bradford obtained a Spanish land grant of about 650 acres in Louisiana and built his plantation on that. It is rumored that the plantation was actually built on ancient Tunica Indian burial grounds, which would explain why there's so much paranormal activity on the property.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes, sir. After General Bradford's death, the plantation was passed on to his daughter, Sarah Matilda, and her husband, Judge Clark Woodruff. The judge was a well-respected man in the community as a man of integrity and staunch upholder of the law, but he also had a problem keeping it in his pants. He had a lot of affairs with his slaves, one of which is rumored to be a slave named Chloe, who was a house slave.
Sounds kind of holy Chloe.
I mean, in that time, you kind of did what you were supposed to do, right? I mean, he said jump and you asked how high, because you don't want to die. I rhymed.
You did?
There are multiple versions of this story, but the most common version states that Chloe was found eavesdropping on Clark, and so he cut her ear off as punishment.
Cut her ear off?
He cut off her ear because she was, like, putting her ear to the door and listening in on his private matters.
Well, that makes sense.
I mean...
What else do you do?
Right? You cut my ear off all the time.
Mm-hmm.
No. She was forced to wear a green turban to cover her disfigured ear. Some accounts state that Chloe was seeking revenge, and some simply state that Chloe was looking to get back into the family's good graces after the conflict. One story is that Chloe planned to bake a cake for the family using leaves from one of the oleander plants on the property, which contain a small amount of poison similar to arsenic. She figured that if she could bake a cake containing just enough poison to get the family sick and then nurse them back to health, she could show them how useful she would be in the house so she wouldn't have to work in the fields.
That's a pretty good plan.
Well, it might have been. But then the family started getting sick, and the story states that no matter how hard she tried, she was not able to nurse them back to health.
Whoops.
Now, it's stated that Woodruff's wife and 2 of the children died from this. Afraid of how Judge Woodruff would react when he returned home, because he was out of town, the other slaves took matters into their own hands, hanging Chloe from a nearby tree, and then threw her body into a river after she had died.
Holy crap. So the slaves took it upon themselves.
Yeah, because they were like, listen, he's going to be pissed when he comes home, so let's just go ahead and get it over with so we can just let him know, hey, we took care of this for you. We're still good. But, you know.
I don't think that's going to play out the way they want it to, is it?
Well, you know, her spirit still haunts the place, but I think they were actually, they didn't have any punishments.
Oh, really?
From what I read.
Poor Chloe.
Yeah. Now, at the time, it was customary to cover all of the mirrors in the home after someone passed away. Basically, they stated so that the soul of the deceased did not become trapped in the mirror. But the mirror in the downstairs entryway was not covered after the deaths. All of the other ones in the house were, but that one wasn't.
So, it's kind of like that mirror at Zach Bagan's haunted mansion that had a spirit in it.
Well, kind of. And so it's stated that the children's spirits are still trapped in the mirror. Visitors have said that they see handprints appear on the glass, strange drip marks that run the length of the mirror and cannot be cleaned, and some have reported seeing figures in old-fashioned clothing in the glass and have even taken pictures of them. According to a tour guide at the property, the glass was actually replaced multiple times and the images always reappear.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's also stated that you can sometimes smell fragrances of roses, magnolias, and perfumes in the upstairs foyer and in some of the bedrooms, and people suspect that that is Sarah Woodruff's ghost. Because that's the kind of perfumes and scents that she preferred. There is a picture that is taken by one of the modern day owners of the plantation of the front of the house. And once it was developed, you could see an apparition near the veranda wearing what appeared to be a green turban.
I've seen that picture on the internet.
Yeah, if you Google the house and ghost, you can see plenty of pictures that have been taken. And that's one of the first ones that come up.
Maybe you should toss that up on Instagram or Facebook or wherever.
I'll probably put that up. Yeah. And it's also said that the guests of the bed and breakfast will hear footsteps wandering the halls. Others report being jolted from their sleep by a black woman in a green turban who lifted up the mosquito netting around their beds as they were sleeping, as if she were looking for someone. Now, there are actually no records stating that Sarah and the children were poisoned. Supposedly, they died at a later date and time of yellow fever. And there are also no records of a slave named Chloe ever being owned by the Woodruffs. But this story still remains. It's one of the most popular stories about the plantation.
It's really famous. So.
Yeah. And in 1834, Laurel Grove was actually purchased by Ruffin Gray Sterling, a wealthy man who owned plantations on both sides of the Mississippi. The Sterlings wanted the house to show off their social status because, they were fancy. So they completely remodeled the house, removing walls, adding elaborate furniture, and renaming the plantation the Myrtles, after the crepe myrtles outside.
Oh, okay.
Sterling passed away in 1854 of consumption or tuberculosis.
So not eating too much.
Not eating too many chocolates, no.
Okay.
And he left the plantation to his wife, who ran the business almost single-handedly. Which in that time was kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
And Mary Catherine was her name. They had 9 children together, and only 4 of them lived to be old enough to marry.
Wow.
Which, of course, was 10 years then, but that still sucks. In December of 1865, Mary Catherine Cobb hired her daughter Sarah's husband, William Winter, to act as her attorney and help manage the plantation, and gave them the home as part of the deal.
It's a good deal.
Now, William and Sarah had 6 children of their own, one of which died of typhoid fever at age 3. Apparently, I can't say typhoid.
Well, we all have our words.
When 3-year-old daughter Kate became ill, Winter reportedly called in a slave, Chloe, from a neighboring plantation who had the reputation of being a voodoo princess.
That's going to end well. Just my knowledge of voodoo.
Now, Chloe was supposed to heal Kate, but despite her efforts, Kate still passed away from typhoid, and in retaliation, William had her hanged. Of course. Now, hard times fell on the Winter family, and they pretty much lost their asses. They were completely bankrupt by 1861, and 2 years later, The property was sold back to Sarah Winter as the heir to her father, Ruffton Sterling. It's unsure how they reversed their misfortune, but it's pretty lucky for them that they did. Until January of 1871.
There's always an until.
Yeah, there's always a but.
Yeah.
William Winter was said to have been teaching a Sunday school lesson in the gentleman's parlor at the house when he heard someone on horseback approach the property and call out to him. He went outside and was shot. The man rode off and was never identified.
I don't guess that was Paul Revere, was it?
No. Now, some stories say that the people in the parlor rushed out to aid William, while others state that he re-entered the home and attempted to climb the stairs before passing from his wounds, passing away on the 17th step in the arms of his wife.
Wow.
People claim that they have seen and captured pictures of a woman descending the staircase, which most assume to be Mary, his wife, and some claim to hear steps in the night going halfway up the stairs to the 17th step and then stopping. In one of the rooms, people have reported smelling cigar smoke, and they assume it to be the ghost of a Confederate soldier, John Leake. Guests of the Ruffton Sterling room report hearing children crying in the middle of the night.
That's where I want to stay.
I was going to say, which would annoy the heck out of you. And some people believe that it's a residual impression of the Woodruff children since they passed away in that room. It's also rumored that during Civil War times, 3 Union soldiers broke into the home and attempted to loot the house and were shot and killed on the spot, which left pools of blood on the floor and a stain that could not be washed away. Crying can be heard in the General David Bradford suite, where 3-year-old Kate Winter passed. The house has been featured on Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and Unsolved Mysteries even filmed there. And they experienced technical difficulties, claiming that the spirits drained the energies from the batteries for the cameras. You can book a room to stay a night at the Myrtles, but they state that oftentimes guests have trouble staying all night because they're too scared.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. I mean, I still want to go.
Yeah, we gotta go. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a beautiful looking place, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's super pretty. I have friends who have visited, and all of their pictures look really good. But also, I mean, I would probably just get more excited about hearing things that go bump in the night and noises. And
we should have went there. We were 30 minutes from it, and we should have went there instead of piss-smelled New Orleans.
It was still a fun trip.
It was not fun.
10 would not do again.
No, do not go to New Orleans on Mardi Gras.
Okay, yeah, not New Orleans on Mardi Gras. That was our biggest mistake. But we didn't know it was Mardi Gras, so it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Now, what are you going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about Lena Baker. We're doing this episode a little bit different than our first two, if you listened. We're going to do 2 stories in this. This was our original plan. So we're just going to do it now. If you don't like it, well, just listen to them at 2 different times. We don't care.
Push pause.
Yeah, there you go. But this is the story of Lena Baker. Lena Baker and Ernest Knight. It is said that Lena Baker already had 4 strikes against her the day that she was born. She was from a small southern town. She was a woman. She was poor, and she was black. Lena Baker was born June 8th, 1900 in a former slave cabin in a small community of Cotton Hill, Georgia, about 5 miles from Cutbirth, Georgia. Cutbirth? I don't know how I'm going to say that yet. It could change. Cutbirth?
I don't really know how that would be said.
I think
said either. We can't talk.
I tried to listen to a video on YouTube or watch a video on YouTube, and they said it Cutbirth. So if you're from there, I'm sorry. I'm going to screw it up. So from now on,
email me and let me know how to say it, because Wes won't check the email probably.
No, and I'm going to call it Cutbirth, Georgia from now on.
So if it's wrong, don't.
Yeah, do not send us an email.
You know, sorry.
But her family was sharecroppers. She lived on a farm with her mother, father, her brother, and 2 sisters. They chopped and picked cotton and did other farm work to make a living. They weren't paid well for their hard work, so the family was extremely poor.
Yeah, sharecroppers didn't really make...
No. I mean, it was a system rigged against them.
Yeah.
But Lena knew there was more to the world, and she was a pretty young woman, so she figured out there was an easier way to make money. At the age of 20, Lena started entertaining gentlemen.
Oh.
Yeah. Both of these stories
Fancy.
are whole-ready.
Fancy.
Yeah. Lena had hoped to earn enough money to move north and start a new life. But just a short time later, the local sheriff got involved.
Oh, no.
Well, because most of her clients were white, and interracial relationships at this time were illegal in Georgia.
Yeah.
So she was arrested and sentenced to 10 months hard labor.
Jesus.
Yeah, they don't mess
I
around.
mean...
The country's changed a lot.
Yeah, it was a different time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and at that time, hard labor was rough work. You were out busting rocks, digging ditches. It's not just a walk in the park, which I'm sure these guys today, they ride garbage trucks and do all that shit. But back then, hard labor, you busted your ass.
Yeah.
And probably got bread and water. But it was in a hot Georgia sun with just hardly anything, probably dragging a ball and chain around. So after that time in jail changed her.
Yeah.
She came back to town. She settled down. She lived with her mother and started a family. She went on to have 3 children. They seemed happy and attended the local church. She started helping her mom do laundry and clean houses as a maid for the locals. It didn't pay much, but they were able to survive, and she was able to make an honest living. Then Lena met Ernest Knight. He was a local grits mill owner. It's a mill that turned grain into flour. He was a failed farmer who was viewed as a brutal and abusive man who was disliked by virtually everyone in town. Knight was an alcoholic who kept a pistol strapped to his chest wherever he went. So you know already, booze and guns, just don't play with guns and booze. Together. Separate, they're great. Together, they're awful.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Not the safest plan.
But in my research, I couldn't find a single good thing about Ernest Knight. Seems like he was just a real dick all the way around.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ernest Knight hired Lena to care for him while he recovered from a broken leg. I couldn't find out how he broke his leg. I'm just going to hope that he fell down and broke it because he was being an asshole.
I hope that it was something terrible, like somebody beat him in the back of his leg with a baseball bat.
Probably was. At first, this seemed like a great job for Lena, but the two quickly formed an unhealthy relationship.
Of course.
Yeah. It's not going to be a happy story.
Yeah.
I mean, but Lena had developed a drinking problem, and Knight would give her alcohol in return for sex. The town disliked their sexual relationship, and the county sheriff had warned her to stay away from Knight or be in risk thrown in jail. So she's already been down this road. She knows she can't have a relationship with a white guy at this time. Knight was persuaded by his oldest son to move to Tallahassee in an effort to break up the pair. But Baker went with him. Knight's son told her to stay away and beat her.
Jesus. Poor girl.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that time, it was a different time.
Yeah.
So he beat her and told her to stay away from his father. But Knight followed her back to Cutbirth. 52 ways you can say, and I'm not going to say them all. So it makes me think that there's more between them than just sex or booze. If she followed him to Florida and he followed her back, I guess there had to be a little bit of love there. Who knows?
Well, it's a, what do you call that?
Symbiotic, maybe?
She needs him because it's chaotic.
Yeah, it's unhealthy.
Yeah, it's an unhealthy relationship. She's figured out that she needs him because she makes him feel... Yeah, codependency. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
But the relationship soon took a more violent turn. Knight would often lock Lena in the mill for weeks, keeping her from her children and her mother. So, I mean...
Jesus.
Lena said that she was afraid of Knight's physical abuse and was afraid to leave him, and that he often forced sex on her. They say that Knight viewed her as nothing more than a sex slave.
Of course, she was an object to him.
Yeah. On the night of April 30th, 1944, Lena went to the house of the local coroner and told him that she had shot Knight and his body was at the mill.
What? What?
Yeah. The coroner told Lena to go to the sheriff. She was cooperative but drunk, so the sheriff gave her time to sleep off the booze. Once she woke up, she told the sheriff her version of what happened. Knight had came to her house drunk and asked her to come with him to the mill. Lena, who had already been warned by the sheriff to stay away from him, because she's already been to jail for sleeping with white guys. So she didn't want any more trouble. She was just going to try to stay away from him. But Knight wasn't having it. So to buy herself a little bit of time to get away, she asked for money for booze to go into town to get some booze. So Knight stayed at her house while she left. So she went into town, but the local tavern was closed, so she couldn't get any whiskey. So she headed back home, hoping that he would be gone. But as she got close, she realized he was still waiting on her. So she went and hid into the woods by her house, trying to keep an eye on him and watched. She lost sight of him, so she started heading back home. But Knight cornered her and took her to the mill.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. He locked her in the mill, and he takes off and goes to a church gathering.
So she thought she got away. She thought everything was going to be fine. Like, he's going to sober up. I can stay away from him. And then all of a sudden, bam, she's locked up and he's gone.
He grabs her and throws her into the mill. So she's locked into this mill for several hours that night. It's a hot and humid night in the Georgia summer. I mean, we're from the South. If you're not from the South, it gets hot as fuck in the South.
If you can't tell, we're from the South by our voices.
Yeah, that's. I know that's going to be a big surprise to everybody, and I hate that I ruined that. But
sorry
we're from
about
the South.
that.
I think I just said fuck too.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, well.
It's fine.
There may be a bleep there, probably not. I think we're past that point now. But
whoops. Really,
hot as balls, hot as Lena's lady balls. But as Lena cooked in this meal, she was getting madder and madder. I mean, I can imagine a mad woman. Have you ever seen a mad woman?
I've been a mad woman.
Yes, earlier today.
I'm pretty hateful most of the time. I'm a hateful tomato was. You know this.
But the longer she stayed in there, sweating her lady balls off, the madder she got.
Oh, of course.
And
she
the only
was stewing
comfort she had in there was a straw bed.
Man.
I've never slept on a straw bed, but I know straw is itchy.
Yeah, no thank you. She was probably like going through the entire situation in her head, thinking about all of the things that she could say to him, like just pre-planning the fight the whole time. Because women are crazy, or at least I am. It's fine.
Yeah, sure is. But when he finally shows back up and brings her food, I mean, I'm guilty of just throwing food at a woman and thinking everything's going to go away. It usually works 95% of the time.
Usually I'm just hangry.
True.
So he does throw food at me, and I'm like, okay, yay, we're happy again.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. I throw food at him, too, when he's mad, so.
Usually helps. Food or booze, magic key.
Oh, yeah.
But after he tosses his food at her, apparently Lena does not take kindly to being locked in a hot meal for most of the night.
Yeah.
So she was pissed.
I don't know if that would really help me in that situation either. I'd
Probably
be like, excuse me, sir. No. No.
Yeah. She told the sheriff that she insisted on going home, and they began to argue. Knight tucked the iron bar that was used to lock her in and said he would kill her before he ever let her leave again.
Jeez.
Lena said she feared for her life, which you would if a guy was waving an iron bar at you.
Yeah?
And attempted to push back him to leave. So the two start struggling. With Baker being the only living witness at this point, the details of what happened are pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
But they say during the struggle, Lena managed to grab his gun that he had strapped to his chest and shot him through the head, killing him instantly.
Oh.
In her words, we tussled over the pistol and it went off. So both of them were drunk, which she probably wasn't. Well, she was still drunk when she got to the sheriff. So both of them were drunk, fighting over the gun, and it went off.
How? He went to a church service drunk. Sorry, I just caught this.
Maybe he was a Baptist.
No, maybe he was Episcopalian.
That's true. Both religions like booze.
Baptists don't talk about it, though.
That's true.
They're the ones that you see, like, at the bar on Saturday nights, and then on Sunday morning you pretend like you haven't seen each other since last Wednesday or last Sunday. You used to be a Baptist, y'all.
I just picture this guy looking like Colonel Sanders, all drunk out of his mind, while going to the church holding his suspenders.
I mean, he might have.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. The story gets a lot worse.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Lena was charged with capital murder.
Oh.
Yeah.
Poor girl.
The trial started August 14th, 1944, under the jurisdiction of Judge Charles Two-Gun Worrell. So you know this guy's going to be
phenomenal.
Yeah. Who presided at the court with 2 pistols on the bench. He was a former lawman out west who boasted of multiple gunfights with multiple men. Which I don't know how much of that actually went on in 1944, so that guy was probably just full of shit.
I don't know. Maybe he just
let's
really liked to shoot.
Send a pigeon out west and see what this guy did. Although night was not locked in the town, a white man had been killed by a black woman, and this was something the town folk was not going to put up with. You know.
I mean, at that time, that was not something that people took offense to that.
Yeah. But since it was such a loving town, they selected a jury of 12 white men.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
No women.
Yeah.
No people of
Just
color.
12 white men. Many of the jurors were good friends and attended the same church and shared morning coffee together.
And I'm sure they talked about it the entire time like you're not supposed to do.
Yeah. At the trial, she testified that Knight forced himself on her multiple occasions and that when she tried to leave, he attacked her. And she shot him in self-defense. I mean, the trial did not last a full court day, taking only a little over 4 hours.
Holy crap.
The jury rejected Baker's plea of self-defense, and in less than 30 minutes, the jury came back with a guilty verdict.
Of course. It's not like he was a respectable member of the community anyways, though.
They didn't care. He was white.
But he was white, yeah.
So,
shoot.
She was convicted of capital murder.
God bless.
The judge sentenced Baker to death in George's electric chair. All this happened on the first day of trial. So all this huge rush of judgment, what is it? How long are we? 27 minutes? And less time than it took to listen to this, at this point, she was found guilty and sentenced to death. So,
God bless.
Her lawyer immediately asked for a new trial to be scheduled, saying the verdict was contrary to the evidence and without evidence to support it, and the verdict was contrary to the law and the principle of justice and equality. Then he promptly resigned.
What?
Yeah.
You don't ask for a retrial and then resign.
Yeah.
No.
It's just a town of really great people. Cutbirth, if you're there, we probably don't like anyway, so just stay there. Things may have changed, but I doubt it.
Babe, it's been...
I bet there's a few Kevins that live in Cutbirth.
More than a few years.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin.
Lena was instantly granted a 60-day reprieve by the governor, which surprised me.
I mean, thank God for that.
Poor
girl.
The Board of Pardons and Parole denied clemency, and her execution date was scheduled for March 5th, 1945.
Man.
And there wasn't a female death row, so she was housed in the men's prison at Redsville State Prison in Georgia.
So I'm sure she endured a ton of crap prior to death.
Yeah, probably wasn't a nice place to stay.
No, I'm sure she was tormented the whole entire time.
A few days before execution, she was moved to the death house and placed right next to the execution chamber in solitary confinement. So just a little over a year from the time the murder happened, she was led to Old Sparky, the name for George's electric chair.
Oh, man.
You know they'd never give electric chairs name like Cuddly Kitty or Mr. Happy Time Chair. They're all...
Mr. Happy Time Chair?
It's
not a happy
Mr.
time,
Happy Time
Leslie.
Surprise Seat.
Mr. Happy Time Surprise Seat. That sounds inappropriate.
But they said Lena was very calm on the way to the chair. They said once she was strapped in, she said her final words. They were, what I'd done, I did in self-defense, or would have been killed myself. Where I was, I could not overcome it. God has forgiven me. I have nothing against anyone. I'm ready to go. I'm one in a number. I'm ready to meet my God. I have a strong conscience.
Oh my gosh.
Witnesses stated that it took 6 minutes and several shocks before the prison doctor pronounced her dead.
Holy crap, she's a tough lady.
And they just kept zapping her, so...
She's a badass.
She was the only woman to ever be executed in Georgia's electric chair. The local paper, you know how they loved her. The headline there was Baker Burns.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Who would do that?
Apparently Cutbirth, Georgia.
Apparently.
A town that we're never visiting.
God.
She was buried in an unmarked grave behind the church that she attended for most of her life. In 2001, a biography was published about her that brought attention to the case. And in 2003, her nephew requested a pardon, aided by a Georgia-based prison advocacy group. And in 2005, 60 years after her execution, the state of Georgia granted Baker a full and unconditional pardon, which you're dead, so it doesn't really matter.
But I mean, like, it's nice to know that it's at least apologized for.
Yeah, I guess
so to speak. Or
we
like,
killed you, but sorry. My bad.
Like, the family can come to peace knowing that, you know, they know that she shouldn't have been killed and that this was wrong. But for them to admit their mistakes, the legal system to admit their mistakes, it would make me feel better.
Yeah. The Board of Pardon and Parole suggested that the crime should have only been tried as manslaughter, which would carry a maximum of 15 years in prison. If she was even convicted,
Jesus.
she shouldn't have even been convicted, really.
Yeah. I mean, apologies just aren't enough, but Lord. 15 years versus death.
Yeah.
And fast-tracked death.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really fast trial.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that
and I mean,
George Stennett. Was it George? The little black kid that got executed? George Steiny?
I am so bad at, my memory is
I think so. I'll probably do
crap.
that in the future.
Okay.
But in 1998, the church raised $250 for her grave marker, so she finally has a marker for her grave.
That's so sweet.
And now her relatives are scattered across the country. So every year they gather at the anniversary of her death to place a wreath on her grave.
Oh.
So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's precious.
In 2008, a movie based on her life, this is how I found out about this story, came out, called Hope and Redemption, the story of Lena Baker. It's not that good of a movie, though, really.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
It's probably not worth watching.
Granted, I usually don't watch movies unless they're with you, and then you fall asleep halfway through.
Yeah,
so.
I fell asleep during this one.
Oh, okay.
It could have been...
It could have been good. He just didn't like the beginning of it, and so he passed out.
It's real hokey.
That's per usual.
It's a real hokey movie. I haven't read the book, but I may do that. But it's just kind of crazy. Due to this hasty trial, she lost her life. And remember, she had 3 kids, so the kids...
They lost their mom.
And her mom.
Forgot about that and lost her daughter.
Yeah. So...
all of these people lost someone. I mean, they probably also all depended on her. I mean...
to bring in that extra money.
Yeah,
so.
Financially. That was probably a huge loss for them, not only emotionally, but financially as well.
And old Ernest, I mean, I'm sure his son misses his dad, but to me, it almost seems like good riddance.
Yeah.
That guy
dude was not a nice fella.
Yeah, I mean, if I could have found one good thing about him, I would have said it, but there's a whole lot of bad stuff, so...
yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure one day I'll have a happy story.
Maybe.
Maybe there will be a puppy caper.
I think, we take what we can get on this.
But that's our 4th episode now, I think, at this point.
Yeah, this is our 4th episode.
We're actually quite surprised. Thanks for everybody listening. We hope that you continue listening and check out all of our social media that Keisha's about to tell you about, because I don't remember it.
Yes. If you have any suggestions on topics for us for the future, feel free to email us at tequilaandterror@gmail.com. As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere that you can get your podcasts.
If you are actually using the computer or your smart device instead of trying to plug our name into a microwave, you're probably going to be able to find us.
Yeah. I Googled us the other day. That was a terrible decision. Us personally, not the podcast. Gosh. Us personally. And I was like, I come up.
If you go to tequilaandterror.com, you can find all the links there. That's probably the easiest way because it's kind of like a content aggregator. One
place stop for your Tequila and Terror shopping needs. You can also find us at Tequila and Terror Podcast on Instagram, Tequila and Terror Podcast on Facebook, and on Twitter at Tequila and Terror.
That's wrong. I thought it was right, but it's Tequila_Terror because there's actually some whole-looking girl with Tequila Terror.
Oh.
I had to change it. I was sending everybody to her Twitter page.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So don't visit that. I mean, unless you're into her, that's fine too.
Probably don't go to her Twitter page.
Go to ours.
Yeah.
Yes.
I may delete that part. She's not a host. She's a fine lady.
She's a wonderful, productive. We don't know her.
We don't at all. She may be on her story. But okay, you finish it up, Keisha.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you. Again, this is the 4th episode. And feel free to contact us on our social media pages or email. Wes will probably not be partaking in any of that. And we appreciate it. Y'all have a good week.